Om Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Bande Guru Param Param. Om Shanti 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 Om Namaste. Welcome to our Greek Drsya Viveka. We begin from the verse 10. I don't know which page. Page 22 in the document. Okay. Yeah, the very bottom of page 22. And then we have the verse. But before we get into that, do we have any questions regarding Panchadasi or any other topic we have covered recently or not? Okay. Or if we have some doubts, so we don't remember the doubts, right? Now, Claudio is very good to write them down.
I only try to, I go back and see some old videos of the Viveka Chundamani also when we studied the Viveka Chundamani, because because I get a little bit confused during the lesson, because always with the mind and the intellect, no? Manomaya Kosho and well, I don't remember the intellect. And so I go back, I see some more videos, and it clarifies me the difference between the two, and that we don't have to really separate it because they are one, you know. So it's all the subtle body. I get a little bit confusing because I understand that you were saying that the subtle body was different from the intellect, but then I see it again, it was that I don't understand in this moment. So okay, now it's it's clear.
Okay, so you have a clear picture now, the difference between the subtle body and the Jiva Atma. Subtle body is the reflecting medium. The reflecting medium produces the Jiva Atma, and the Jiva Atma is, although it's one single organism, you know, a self-conscious phenomenal, principle, or being, it has different functions, but all these functions are exactly what we are as human beings, or reflected consciousness, or human consciousness. So we are this aham that experience thoughts, feelings, and emotions, doubts, and determinations, and memory. So everything is happening within what we call the Atma of the Jiva, which is the Jiva Atma, which is reflect consciousness. This reflect consciousness is this aham that we experience all the time. And this aham, it goes through 3 states, and it has different functions that makes it a conscious being, a conscious creature. No? So we don't need to separate the intellect from the determining, discerning, discriminating aspect of our being, of our conscious being. We don't need to separate it from the emotional, mental aspect, you know. But we try to understand those different functions, because the more we break it down, like in 5 different levels of identity in the 5 koshas, 5 sheets, as we break it down, it's more easily for us to identify the subtle ways we get wrapped up on those different levels of experience and establish our identities on the not self. You understand? So we want to understand these functions, although it's one single phenomenon called the reflect consciousness, or the ahamkara of the Jiva Atma, which is fundamentally, it is Brahman, it is limitless consciousness, but through these different levels of experience, the 5 sheets, the 5 levels, the 5 dimensions of human experience, somehow this consciousness, this limitless consciousness experience the limitation which is inherent to the identification with experience, okay? And those experiences come from these different levels. Okay, this is a good way to begin this class, let's say. So on the very bottom of the page 22, it says the verse 10. The body also becomes unconscious in deep sleep when the ego is in absorption. The half manifestation of the ego is dream, and its full manifestation is the awakening. So the author here presents the fact that in deep sleep, the ego is just suppressed or in absorption, okay? So the aham no longer comes with your conscious sense of existence, of individual existence. It's said that there is an aham there, but it's so subtle and it's almost insubstantial, and therefore this aham, which is the prana aham, the prana jiva, does not really brings about the fundamental duality, experiencer and experienced. So that does not come into play. So that is when the physical body becomes unconscious in deep sleep, so the mental body, the ego, the aham, it also is suppressed, and it's not experienced on a conscious level, but it's there. It is there suppressed, it's there as a potential, it's there as a vasana with its tendency of identification with the not self, which is fundamental ignorance is there. It's just suppressed, but it comes back with the awakening state. And then there is this manifestation of the ego that comes, when we go into the dream state. And here the author says that the dream state is a half manifestation of the ahamkara. So the ahamkara, it appears and it has this world of objects of experience. It appears as the experiencing entity, the subtle world of thoughts, feelings, emotions, and memories. It is projected as the dream world, and this entity, the so-called tejasa, the one which shines with its inner world and projects duality in the subtle world. So this is there. It's not fully manifest. It's not fully conscious, but there is a certain level of ahamkara there. Okay, and this dreamer, there's not so much purpose. Okay. In terms of self-inquiry and self-knowledge, because as a dreamer of a discriminating mind, our intellect is not really fully available to us. So we hardly can extract knowledge from those dreams, except when we hold some memories and then in retrospective, we analyze the dream. And then we say, that may be coming due to this and that tendencies or suppressed emotions or whatever, But otherwise, this half manifest ego of the dream is not of much need or help. So although many years back, I remember an article, or scientific article, saying that they were discovering that in the dream state is as important as the awakened state, and at the time they were suggest that maybe even more important, because the dream state allows the ahamkara to somehow to release a lot of suppressed thoughts, feelings, emotions, and things, So scientists were considering or suggesting that maybe it is very, very important as well to dream, we know that the deep sleep is wonderful to refresh our body-mind system, but it says that we need those dreams because whatsoever we cannot release in the awakening state due to the society codes of behavior and this and that, we can do what we want subconsciously in the dream state. Nobody's going to judge us. Nobody's going to take us to jail if we kill someone in the dream, right? So we are free to throw away all our suppressed contents of our mind. But otherwise, it's not very useful. But this dreaming entity, the half-manifest ego, it becomes fully manifest in the awakening. It becomes the Vishwa, and then the Aham is fully manifested. It's fully awake. It's fully conscious, although this consciousness of the Vishwa is under the spell of avidya, of ignorance, as we know. Maya is there, somehow projecting and concealing through these energies that somehow compose the subtle body, which is conditioning the reflection of this human consciousness. So this human consciousness, which is what we are, which is our consciousness reflects in the reflecting medium. So this consciousness is all the time dealing with rajas and tamas that makes it difficult for it to be fully conscious, I mean, we are conscious of our environment, but then what happens? Our intellect is having a lot of trouble in reading and understanding the lessons that life is providing us with, you understand? And instead we write some unnecessary patterns of victimization and complaints and whinings and things like that. And we lose the opportunity because we have the intellect, which is under the spell of avidya, under the spell of Maya, due to this power, fundamental power of projection and concealing and covering, avarana and vikshipa that manifests as rajoguna and tamoguna in the subtle body, in the mental, emotional, intellectual aspect of the human experience. Okay, so that's what we see in this verse 10. Let's say what the Swami here says. It goes into the details of the seer 2. The seer 2 here is present to be the subtle body of the mind. The mind has three states. So now we know that there is a mind as one of the seers. We know that the consciousness is the absolute seer. We know that the mind or the subtle body is the first relative seer. Okay, and then we know that the sense organs appear as another relative seer, and then we know the sense instruments, the physical instrument, they appear as another seer or illuminator of one's field of experience. Okay, but the mind, the mind which is the first relative seer, the mind is not so simple to understand the mind because the mind goes through three states. So and it takes with it also the sense organs, of course, you understand, because the sense organ is going to travel through those three states and somehow exercise their power differently. Okay. So we have the mind, and here say, but the mind goes through three states, and we know the three states. And the mind is totally passive in the dream state, in the deep sleep state, susupti, avastha. When the mind is partially active, so when it's dreaming, it goes into swapna, avastha. In this state is just based on the past experience of the awaker, the one in the awakening state. Okay, so it's a kind of recycling our objective experience, okay? So, but the point here is that when the mind is partially active, it projects the dream state. In this state is based on our past experience as the awaker, the visual, and then this state, the mind projects in a world called dream world, which the sense organs are now required. So here we have gone through this observation last time, and then we found at first a little confusion, but then we realized that here they mean the sense organs extends themselves to the sense instruments. The sense instrument, the physical sense instruments are not required for us to sense and experience the dream world, okay? But there is for sure something that allows us to sense the dream world. And the dream world is sensed through the sense organs, which belongs to the subtle body. Né? In this state, the mind does not contact the external world. The dream world has sufficient reality to disturb the mind. It means to say that it is an experiencing state. There is an experiencing entity there, and it is experiencing the subtle world through some means, some sensory organs that allows this entity to experience. Why you know? Because there is a state of experience, there is a mental state, and the mind is disturbed. It can be disturbed and can be pacified. I mean, I have had dreams in the past that the mind became so pacified, so still and so blessed and so celestially peaceful, that I wake up from that. I say, oh my God, this was a dream that resolved my mind completely. But a dream has the power also to disturb the mind more often than not, as we know, because dreams, a lot of the time, they are suppressed materials that were not comfortable, therefore they were suppressed. And then when they pop up, they produce disturbance. The mind is partially active, and with the vasana aspect of the mind. Excuse me, I'm just closing the windows. When the mind becomes fully operational, it fully uses the sense organs and the sense instruments. So, and then we become the seer one that is present here as the physical, the sense organs and the sense instrument. The mind does not experience the internal world. So this mind, which is the mind of the awaker, does not experience the internal world, but it experiences the external world. This statement as well, it could be subject to a discussion, because in the awakened state, the mind is fully available, fully conscious, and fully operational, and it uses the sense organs and the sense instruments to contact the world, and the seer too, which is the sense, the mind is supporting the sense organs and the sense instruments, and is producing the seer one. And the seer one, which is the sense instruments or sense organs, the sense instruments, because here they are present together, does not experience the internal world, but experience the external world. But as we know, our external experience of the world is also influenced by the experience that we have retained in our internal world, in our mind, in our mental, emotional impressions, tendencies, memories. So we somehow we use those vasanas, those tendencies, propensities, to contact the external world. So in some way, the mind is operating fully, using its causal body, because we experience, there are some expressions brought up by James Watts. I mean, of course, they are stretched, when sometimes, depending on the angle of the teachings, we say, you don't experience the world, you experience your vasanas. You remember that, Lynn? You experience your vasanas. No? Why? Because our vasanas are making the reading for us, our biases, our tendencies, okay? That blinds us and somehow projects itself on the vyavaharika, on the objective external world. Yeah? So both are at play. The mind has its state, and therefore it's clear that the Sakshi does not have Avastha Trayam. Okay, so these states, the mind is fully active. This state is Jagrata Avastha, the state, the awakened state. So the mind is subject to these variations of states, but consciousness is not subject to them, does not have states. And this is something very, very important to clearly understand, to be understood, because in the world, the spiritual world out there, there is this confusion, which is a superimposition of the mind in consciousness. And people believe that consciousness have states, okay? So, and I'm trying to expand my state. Consciousness is expanding, it's growing, it's developing states until I move into the Turiya state. Big confusion when we bring in, especially this Turiya deal, and we say that it's a higher state. States belong to the mind. Consciousness does not have states. Yeah? It's very important to understand that consciousness is non-dual. It seems that my internet is having some drops sometimes. Are you hearing me well? Okay. In the dream sleep state, in sushupti, or sushupti, I think it's sushupti, the pronunciation, sushupti. In sushupti, which is the dream state, the deep sleep state, the mind is fully resolved, fully suppressed. Awakened dream and deep sleep continue in a cyclic manner forever. Death is only a relatively longer sleep because the mind goes into a passive state for a longer period of time. So we sleep, some of us sleep for a few hours, some a little bit more, but every day we go through this cycle of those three states. And then when we have the what's called the death of the physical body, we go into a different or maybe we could say more prolonged deep sleep, okay? But is it deep sleep? Nobody really can tell, okay? Because we although Vedanta is not interested in esoteric or mystical, systems or schools, so we hear that there are different locus in which the soul experience its own mental emotional contents, okay? And then there are some locus in which the soul experience its own mental emotional contents, and then it is a deep sleep or it is a dream. That's the point. When we leave the body, are we going to go into a deep sleep, or are we going to go into a dream in which we're going to exhaust some punya and some papa? I have to call Swami P on this one. I think it's about time. Let's see. So, but here it says that the mind is totally resolved. This mind is alive and well during what's called death of the physical body. Can the mind dream after death? No, because the mind requires a body for dreaming. How interesting. Only a body awaking and dream states are possible. Only in a body, awake and dream states are possible, okay? Which adds a little bit more confusion to this topic, okay? Because a few times I have seen expositions, Vedantic expositions, in which the locus, these different realms or dimensions of heaven and hell, there is an experience, okay, which is a little bit like a dream experience, okay? But here it's saying that only when the soul, only when the subtle body is associated with the physical body, there is a possibility for dreaming and awakening state. That's very, very interesting, and I'm going to have to dig into this. That is only a relatively long sleep because the mind goes into passive states during that time. The mind exists well during the process of death of the physical body. Can the mind dream after death? No, it's not really a dream. It says here, because a dream requires a physical body for dream. Why? Because the physical body is collecting data from the external world, retaining those, and then project into this dream state. Only when the soul is associated with the body, waking and dream states are possible. During the dissolution of the universe, the mind continues to exist in deep sleep, like state called the causal state. In the next creation, the mind takes birth and it will run its karmas. This cycle will go on and on until the end, until what's called the Videha Mukta, which is the Jivan Mukta, living this manifestation, its physical manifestation, with no intentions to come back and therefore dissolving in the ocean of consciousness alone. When the individual mind merges into the total mind, okay, and then there is no individual, there is only Ishwara's mind. When the mind goes to sleep, the body cannot borrow consciousness fully from the mind, and the body becomes as thought dead. This is a nice statement as well. When the mind goes to deep sleep, so we are there, we enjoy the deep sleep, and then the body, the physical body and the subtle body are no longer available. Okay, the mind is there, it is unconscious to so to speak, and it cannot borrow consciousness fully. Consciousness is there, but it's not really conscious, neither subconscious in the case of the dreamer, but the mind is really almost totally unconscious, let's say. So it cannot borrow consciousness from the mind, and the body becomes as thought it's dead. Okay, so is it really the body is as dead? No, the body is not as dead. When the mind goes to deep sleep, let's look into the mind here, considering that the mind is the subtle body, and the subtle body produces the ahamkara. When the ahamkara is not anymore shining in the subtle body due to the dominance of tamoguna, the body cannot borrow consciousness, and it appears as thought it is dead. But we know that the body, although the subtle body, consciousness lends its conscious existence to the subtle body, the subtle body kind of disappears or falls back into the causal body due to this dominance of tamoguna, okay? And then the body cannot appear as a living, acting creature, the body appears as if it's almost dead, okay? It does not appear as a living organism, but it does appear still as a living organism. Why? Because the pranamaya, the pranas are still there activating the physical body. The physical body is not completely as dead. There is a certain aspect of the subtle body that is still keeping the body in check. You understand? So it is there. It's doing its job. There is not enough sattva to produce the ahamkara, but the subtle body is there. Sattva was suppressed. There is tamoguna, which allows the body to go into deep sleep, the mind to be suppressed, the ego to be suppressed, but yet there is enough rajoguna to keep the body in check. The system, the 5 systems are well and alive. The pranas are doing their job. Do you understand, Claudio? During the dissolution of the universe, the mind continues to exist in a deep sleep-like state called the causal state, the macrocosmic causal state. And in the next creation of the universe, the mind takes again an individual birth with all its vasanas, with all its karmas. So the account is not erased. This is an interesting and important concept that we cannot find a way out of samsara, mithya, of this system, okay? We can say, okay, I'm so done with trying to be a better me. I'm not gonna do any work anymore. I'm just follow my stupid nature. I'm gonna live my life, experience punya and papa, pleasures and pains, hoping for the day that the universe is going to go back to what is called what's the name? Pralaya. And then I'm done, because then I'm not going to get another birth, and my karma is going to be totally dissolved, and then I'm free from the system. Free. No, because even when there is a dissolution of the universe, pralaya, the mind continues to exist there, like in a deep sleep, which is in a seed potential state called the causal state, until the next creation. And the mind will take a birth and it will bring with it, this individual soul will bring with it, it is karmas. Karmas is what we need, what we come here for. We come here for processing our karmas, to pick up the results of our actions, and process them in a way that I can make myself a more conscious being, a more sattvic being, more wise person, until I can get out of this samsara system. This cycle will go on and will end only at the time of Videha Mukti, when the individual mind merges into the total mind. When the mind goes to sleep, the body cannot borrow consciousness. It becomes as death. I'm repeating myself. When the mind is actively present, the body is alive. When the mind is absent, the body is dead. When the mind is passively present, the body is like dead. The body is not aware of the condition in that state. Definitely not. But the body is alive because there is an aspect of the mind, which is the pranas that are keeping the physical body in check. Thus, the function of the mind is explained, which is that the mind goes through 3 states of experience. The function of the sense organs has also been explained, which is assisting the mind during the awakened state. This is a nicely put. What is the function of the sense organs and the sense instruments? Here we are seeing the sense organs as the seer one, the one who contacts the world, and we know that sense organs extend themselves through the physical sense instruments. And what is the purpose of this sense instrument? Assisting the mind during the awakened state. So the mind is going to process those interactions, these contacts with the physical external world, and it needs these 5 beams of experience, of the 5 sense. They are just 5 channels by which we collect data, and these 5 organs are going to be there assisting the mind, doing its job, providing the mind with what it needs, for processing experience and extracting wisdom from experience. The purpose of life is to extract wisdom from experience. The function of the body is assist the mind during awake. Thus, the functions of consciousness of the mind, the sense organs, the body, I mean to say the whole individual have been explained. So now he presenting the chain, the entire chain, consciousness, and then the mind, the sense organs, the sense instruments. So everything is there aligned, so that the consciousness can fall into duality and have an experience through its individual souls. It's the mechanism has been explained. The functions of Sakshi is providing consciousness and existence. The functions of the mind we have just assessed and established. It is the primary instrument by which consciousness can have an experience, and the sense organs and the sense instrument, they are there assisting the mind. The mind is the primary instrument of experience. The sense organs is a secondary instrument of experience, and I would say the physical instruments, sense instruments, another level of assistance that we have, without which we cannot really experience the external world. So this is the chain by which we have our experience, and that happens through 3 states. Some of those states serves basically no purpose in terms of extracting knowledge. So only in the awakened state we have our better opportunity to experience and learn something while we are having this human experience. So the very mechanism of life has been explained. Any experience that an individual has can be explained within this system, this paradigm. The entire phenomenon of life and death can thus be explained by this paradigm. It's a very beautiful paradigm that is comprehensive. It is beautiful. It is wonderful. I feel almost emotional to have the privilege to look into this with you guys right now. Anything? Okay. The verse 11. The sought modification of the inner equipment, having attained an identity with the reflection of consciousness, is the dream state. So all these subtle modifications of this inner instrument, which is the mind or the subtle body, having attained the identification with the reflection of consciousness in the dream state, project impressions. And in the awake state, imagine objects outside with the eyes and the other sense organs and instruments. So let's try to understand what the author is trying to show us here. So we know that we have the ahamkara is one thought, the most primordial soul. I am, I exist. And then this I thought contacts the world of objects, and for each object, every object comes with a thought in regards to the object. You probably heard that from Ramji several times. There is no difference between an object and the thought of the object. So every object is going to bring about a thought, okay? An idea, a notion, determination about that object of experience. So this is going to produce a flux of modifications, of mental modifications. So this flux, the thought fluxion of modifications of the inner equipment, it brings about an identity with the self, with the reflected self, reflect consciousness in the dream state. So in the dream state, those modifications are coming up, showing up, and then there is an aspect of the jiva that identifies with those recycled thoughts of subtle objects which was kept as impressions. They pop up again, and then there is a sense of identification with this reflection of consciousness in the dream state, the taijasa, the one that shines, projecting its inner memories, its inner impressions. This is an experience we have every day. There is a sense of identification, but fortunately, as soon as we come out of the dream, we just look at it and say, oh my God, thanks God, it was just a dream. Sometimes we say, oh, what a pity. It was just a dream. It was only a dream. I wish it was reality when it's a good dream. But it's a projection of one's mental, emotional impressions. It is an identity derived, extract from these modifications of impressions, of memories, that projects themselves, creating the dream state. Whereas in the waking state, this thought modification imagine objects outside through the sense organs and sense instruments. So the most intriguing passage here is when the author says in the awakened state, these thought modifications, the aham associate with idam, the thoughts in regards to the object. The object comes, it's seen in the light of the mind, which is in the light of consciousness. But then it says here that these thought modifications are going to imagine objects outside. So I'm curious to see why he's putting out that is just an imagination, that there is nothing really out there. But this entity in the awakened state imagines a world to be out there. So let's say what Swami says here to help us to understand that statement. Here the author comes to another part of the system that he has left out. Okay, it's a system beginning from the absolute seer until the most dense relative seer, and then contacting the world of physical instrument, the external world. A particular aspect of the system was introduced earlier, but has not been discussed. This is the base. This is based on the verse 6. There it was said that the mind has two parts. One is the material part, and the other is the thought part or the sentient part, okay? So it is similar to the lake and the waves. So the lake has two aspects, One is the lake itself, which is pure water, and then it appears as waves as well. Waves are part of the lake, but they are as thought separate because they rise and fall. So there is an illusion that there are two principles in operation, the lake and the wave, the ripples. But it's not the case. The author has not talked about the rich part so far of the subtle body. The subtle body in its substantial aspect, substantial nature, it's just the three energies mixed up, by the five subtle elements. Okay, we have the five subtle elements. It's the subtle aspect of each one of those subtle elements. And then there is also rajas and tamas, but it's highly sattvic. And this excess, this dominance of sat are going to produce the aham and the vidam. So the thoughts, this constant flux of thoughts. So we have the substantial material energy aspect, which is just the subtle body. And we have the thoughts, which is the idam, aham idam, okay? So the thoughts do not have any power to illumine any object by themselves. But before, let's see here. What is the job? The author has not talked about the v.tti part, the thought part. He talks about the material part, okay? The substantial material part, but not the thought part, okay? So before we thought that the material aspect of the mind is the reflecting medium, and that is only inert material energy, right? It is inert, so that cannot produce the human consciousness. That does not produce reflected consciousness, okay? So now he's diving into something very nice. He says the mind has two aspects, the substantial and the sentient aspect, the thought aspect. So he's going to clarify to us that the thought aspect of the mind as well does not have the power to produce reflect consciousness, okay? So the physical, material, substantial does not have the power to produce consciousness. So the thought, the vrittis, the sentient aspect that immediately comes with the aham and then associate with dham, appears to be consciousness itself, okay? Reflect consciousness or ahamkara, but the ahamkara as a thought, as sentience, as this thought, the vritti aspect of the mind, yet does not have the power to produce consciousness. That's where we're going to be led here. The thoughts do not have the power to illumine anything out there, okay? So it appears that it does have. I am a sentient being, I know that I am, I know that I exist, and I know that I experience other objects out there. And then it appears this aham thought by itself as a vritti has the power to illumine, is the absolute seer, or has the power to illumine the external world, okay? The thoughts do not have the power to do so. Thoughts get that power when they borrow, quote unquote, consciousness from Chaitanya, from Sakshi Chaitanya. Consciousness is the one who's lending conscious existence to those two aspects of the mind, okay? The substantial aspect, substantial physical, material, energetic nature, as the reflecting medium, and then the reflection that is the aham, and then experience idam. But this aham kara does not hold itself. This reflect consciousness is not freely and independent a conscious principle, because it depends on original consciousness that naturally and spontaneously concedes or lends its conscious existence to produce the ahamkara. So where is this consciousness? Where is this light of the illuminator come? Is it coming from the energy, substantial aspects of the mind? No. Is it coming from the reflected consciousness, the ahamkara, the aham experience, idam? No. The vritti aspect does not contain, is not self-contained, does not possess its own consciousness. It depends on free, limitless, independent consciousness, Sakshi Chaitanya. This Sakshi Chaitanya, it borrows or lends consciousness to the thoughts, to the ahamkara. Just like the lake has the reflected sunlight, the waves also have the reflected sunlight. Both the mind and the thoughts are going to be reflecting this sunlight. Consciousness is going to be reflected as a vrit, and it's going to be reflected as the subtle body as well. So the substantial aspect, and then it's reflected as the aham and idam. Both are getting this sunlight, which is the light of consciousness, from Brahman, from consciousness, and consciousness originally, consciousness alone. Both the substantial mind and the thoughts produced in the mind have this capacity to borrow consciousness directly from Sakshi. So it appears that the mind has a certain capacity to borrow consciousness direct from Sakshi. It's more like the case that Sakshi, or consciousness, pervading everything. It concedes consciousness to everything. In all aspects of the body-mind construct, we have consciousness providing its conscious existence to all these different functions and aspects. But it seems that the mind, in its material substantial aspect, okay, and idam and aham and idam, or the vrittis, in constant modification, they are boring, they have a certain capacity. But all capacity, all power comes from consciousness. Consciousness, by its own capacity or power, pervades and lends consciousness directly to the subtle body. And the subtle body is going to experience those different aspects, okay? The mind, or the subtle body, and the thought, the sentience aspect. Every thought has reflected consciousness. The thoughts cannot exist without reflected consciousness. It is a reflection that produces the vrits. This thought plus reflected consciousness is called cognition, or knowledge, or experience. How beautiful. Every thought has reflected consciousness. Every thought is but an aspect of reflected consciousness. This thought, aham, associated with the external world, producing idams, this thought, okay, is a reflection of consciousness. Every thought is a reflected consciousness. This thought plus reflected consciousness. So what is a thought? Is consciousness plus reflect consciousness in association with an object, producing a thought of an object. Okay, so this is all happening within us in a moment to know. This flow of consciousness, reflected in a reflecting medium, producing the aham and the thoughts of the object, okay, is called cognition, or intellectual cognition, or human knowledge, or human experience. Okay, very, very nice. Every experience, we could say experience slash knowledge slash cognition, or even memory, which is impressions left before from experience, knowledge, cognitions, determinations. Every one of these phenomena, experience that leads to knowledge, which can be good knowledge or bad knowledge, which depends on our cognition or discrimination or discerning faculty, which leaves behind impressions or memories. All of that requires not just the mind, but the thoughts also, okay? The subtle body, not only the subtle body, but the thoughts. What it means to say? It means that the subtle body may produce a reflected consciousness, but if the mind aspect, but the vritti aspect of this mind, the ability to experience, know, and determine and hold one's memory, if it's not properly sustained and arranged in good shape, we cannot have an experience. Okay, every experience, non-cognition, requires not only the subtle body, but the thoughts, our cognition, our determining, our discrimination, discerning aspect together with the memories that support, because we make our determinations by using the memories retained in the subtle body and in the causal body, okay, or bias. So all of this is required for experience / knowledge / wisdom, okay? It's called v.tti, thoughts plus reflected consciousness, okay? There is a aham thought which cannot exist without consciousness, cannot exist without reflect consciousness. It's just reflect consciousness are going to experience the world through two vrittis. One is aham and the other is idam, the thoughts in respect to the objects in the external world. V.tti determines the quality of life and thus plays an important role, which the author explains in this verse. Wow, it's so beautiful. It's a pity that we are almost done with our class today. Okay, so this process of experience that conduces to knowledge, which depends on our cognition and our memories, all of that, okay, it depends on consciousness. This is called v.tti, yeah? The thoughts that produce knowledge, okay, which is thoughts associate with reflect consciousness to produce v.tti. The quality of this v.tti, the quality of the thoughts we hold as knowledge, whether this knowledge is real good knowledge or so-so knowledge or mistaken knowledge, the quality of this v.tti determines the quality of life of the individual and thus plays an important role, which the author explained in this verse. This is wonderful. And then it moves here into the following class, in which he goes again in more summary. But we don't want to go into this summary because we are here like, oh, more, tell more about this v.tti, huh? We don't want to go back. He's a master of doing summaries again and again. Okay, I will leave this v.tti for our next class. And I'm sure we're gonna have great delight in doing so. So do we have anything from you guys? Any comments, suggestions, contributions?
It is beautiful, Arlindo. Thank you for the class today. Just really beautiful.
Yeah, very
Figure if you get all this assimilated, that understanding is moksha, isn't it?
absolutely.
Because you don't stand, yeah,
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
yeah. Moksha
Thank you.
is understanding, very well put. Yeah, getting the whole picture and not again and again falling for this concealing power that somehow eclipses or hides or makes this knowledge forgetful, yeah? A knowledge that needs to be again and again remembered, yeah? And the knowledge is it's a knowledge about the nature of Satya, the nature of Mithya, and the true nature of Mithya as Satya and the true nature of Jiva-Atma is Paramatma, in a way that we can understand this entire system and the importance of Vritti-yana. The knowledge is everything. Knowledge is that which is always good, and moksha is only possible by the means of knowledge, this experience that provides us with opportunities of learning through our cognition, intellect, cognition aspect of our intellect, and with the aid of our memories, our vasanas, okay? So all of this needs to be purified. Purified is a process of just removing bad, imprecise knowledge, or mistaken knowledge, erroneous knowledge. We have to begin to let it be, and then associate with the scriptures on wisdom and with satsanga, and then gradually we're going to have experience producing knowledge until this yana is going to condition a better quality of life for the Jiva-Atma. And the author will explain it in the next verse, and I'm looking forward for it. And we meet again next week, the same time, Ishwara willing, of course. Okay? Anything from you, Claudio and Mark? Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, my friends. Namaste. Love you. See you again soon in the next Monday with Panchadas. Bye-bye.
You.
Okay, thanks. Bye now.
Bye-bye.